Welcome into the show. You're watching Philadelphia Eagles Now. I'm Chase Senior. No matter where you are or how you're tuned in, we appreciate you as always for making the program a part of your day. As for what we're getting into on today's show, Eagles-Bucs Monday Night Football preview. We're going to get you set with everything that you need to know. Betting odds, score prediction, keys to the game, matchups to watch, injury news. But first, speaking of this game, we're back for another watch party on Monday Night Football. Week 1, more than 90,000 views. Week 2, more than 150,000 views. We continue to set records here on the program here on Philadelphia Eagles Now. Continue to be a part of history. Join us and hit that subscribe button. So I can't wait for this game, and I think Philadelphia has had a variety of tests to start the year. You go on the road, difficult weather, you're playing Bill Belichick. He had all offseason to prepare for you, and that defense was stingy, and they provided a good test to start off the 2023 season. Then on a short week, you come up against a Minnesota Vikings team that was 0-1 coming in, desperate to win. Brian Flores, their new defensive coordinator, he's done some good stuff schematically. He's a Bill Belichick disciple, and we saw early on that the Vikings were able to pose a pretty good test for Philadelphia's offense. And then the Eagles found their groove. They seem to have found their identity, and we literally talked about it all throughout the show in the lead up to that game. Jalen Hurts clearly not comfortable to start the season. How do you make him comfortable? Easy reads, easy throws, run the football. And then in turn, what happens? The Eagles' offensive line starts to feel itself because they love bullying people. And once they started to run it with DeAndre Swift, they were dominant. And this is an interesting game here because Philadelphia enters as 6-point road favorites. The over-under, pretty solid number there at 46.5. That's in that in-between range, depending on how things are going to play out in your estimation. Kickoff set 7:15 p.m. Eastern, 4:15 for those of you on the West Coast, an hour earlier as compared to normal Monday night games because ESPN is doing that doubleheader again. So the Bucs so far up to this point, how is Tampa Bay 2-0? Not a lot of people expected them to be perfect going into week 3, but they go on the road week 1, very solid win against the Minnesota Vikings, 20-17. They edged them out by 3. And then in week 2, the Chicago Bears are awful. They might be the worst team in the NFL all throughout the offseason. It made me want to puke that people were talking about Justin Fields as an MVP candidate. He was going to be the next Jalen Hurts. I called cap on that, no way. And so far, it's been awful. Now, the coaching staff for Chicago is not good. The defense continues to give up 20-plus points every single game, even though they have a defensive head coach. But for Tampa Bay to win that game against a desperate team, 27-17, it was close up until the end. Tampa Bay able to do some good things in that football game. As for Philadelphia, we know the story so far. 25-20 win on the road against New England in week 1. A gutsy and mentally tough dub for the Birds. And then in week 2, the scoreboard shows that this was a closer game than it was, but it was 27-7. The Eagles were in full control up until the Vikings made it 27-21, and then the Eagles go 75 yards right down the field, get some more points, led by DeAndre Swift, and that was the gut punch for Minnesota. Skull, skull, skull? Nah, Foles, Foles, Foles. Why the Bucs are 2-0 and the identity of this team in this juncture of the season. You know, the defense has played really well, and as we're about to show you, they do have some very good defensive players, edge rushers, linebacker, corner, safety, really at every single level of that defense. They're pretty stacked. They did beat potentially 2 bad teams. I know the Bears are going to be awful. The Vikings might be bad. So maybe take that 2-0 start with a grain of salt, but it's hard to win in the National Football League. I will say this, after everybody thought that Baker Mayfield was cooked, did some solid things with Sean McVay and the Rams last year in replacing Matthew Stafford. He has been solid so far. This Bucs roster is very loaded, and Tampa Bay has been smart with the football in some big moments, especially Baker Mayfield. Now, for Philadelphia on the injury front, it seems as though they're going to be in a really good spot. Nick Sirianni basically said that the players who missed last week's game, including Reed Blankenship, James Bradbury. They are expected to play in this game. And for Philadelphia, they are the better team. They're Super Bowl contenders. The Buccaneers are not. But beware that you cannot take this Bucs team lightly because they are a solid football team. This is a good roster when you break down all of the very solid players on it. And this is a credit to their front office and what they've been able to build. You have Mike Evans, who has a 1,000-yard receiving season every single year that he's been in the NFL. Chris Godwin is a very good 1B or number 2. Tristan Wirfs is one of the best left tackles and tackles in the game. Vita Vea can cause a lot of problems at defensive tackle. That's a good matchup, him against Jason Kelsey or him up against Cam Jurgens and Landon Dickerson. Devin White has been playing great ball, looking to land a new contract with that elite sideline-to-sideline speed. He could take over a game. They have Levante David, who's also a very good inside linebacker. Shaq Barrett coming off the edge. He had a pick 6 on Justin Fields last week. 2 very good cornerbacks in Jamel Dean and Carlton Davis. And I really like the safety, Antoine Winfield, who really came onto the scene in 2020 when, led by Tom Brady, the Buccaneers won another Super Bowl championship. Again, you look at these Week 3 betting odds, a lot of people like Philadelphia here. They are 6-point road favorites. And I think in Tampa, not going to be a lot of Buccaneers fans. We know that because the Phillies play in Clearwater and because a lot of the snowbirds are going to go down to Florida for the offseason. And in general, a lot of Philadelphians end up going to Florida. And this part of Florida, it could be an Eagles-heavy crowd at Raymond James Stadium. -6 is the number for the Eagles, over-under at 46.5. If you're looking to bet on this game, only one place to do it. BetUS, promo code Eagles125 if you head to chatsports.com/EaglesBet. And when you use that link as well as that promo code, you get a 125% deposit bonus. You put in 100, you get $125 back. That's $225 to game with, as I've been all over this app and coming up with a lot of winners so far throughout the NFL and college football slate. How the Eagles are 2-0. Really, up to this point, Philadelphia's played C football. So to play C football and to be 2-0, that's pretty impressive. And that just shows you the talent that Philadelphia has up and down that roster because the talent wins out throughout the course of a 60-minute ball game. The Eagles, 3rd in turnover differential this year. They are +4. So they've been able to force turnovers. They haven't done a great job of taking advantage of them. If they can do that, they'll start to win some of these games a lot easier. What I like about Philadelphia, they can play with contrasting styles. They can run for 250-plus yards and run it right down the throats of the Minnesota Vikings, or if they have to throw it a little bit, hoping that Jalen Hurts gets a little bit better, you can do that. Or a sloppy game in New England, you can win throwing it and a little bit of that run game. And then defensively, their defensive line wears you down throughout the game, and then their secondary has been very, very solid as well. My keys to the game, let's segue there. I don't think there's any question that Jalen Hurts has been very average the first 2 games of the season. He simply has to pick it up, and so far his numbers are down, and the Eagles actually are like 21st in throwing the football as far as passing attempts go among 32 teams in the NFL so far. 363 yards in 2 games. That's not a lot. The completion percentage is good, 71.4, but his yards per attempt is way down. That's a career low, 6.5. Only thrown for 2 touchdowns and 1 pick. Both of those touchdowns going to Devontae Smith. Good defensive minds is what Philadelphia has had to face to start the season. Week 1, you get Bill Belichick. Week 2, you get Brian Flores. It's not really going to get any easier in Week 3. Todd Bowles is a defensive coach with a lot of good defensive players on that side of the ball. Key to the game number 2, don't commit dumb AF turnovers. That's how you lose this game. You go down to Tampa, you think you're going to coast to a win, and then you have bad ball security. Tampa gets some turnovers at home. They start to get fired up. Momentum flips, and that can just turn into an ugly game. Like the Eagles did in Week 2, in Week 3, feed DeAndre Swift. I think the Eagles here on the offensive side of the rock have found a secret weapon. And a weapon who can help take this offense to new heights. This guy's better than Miles Sanders. I'm sorry, that's not a knock on Miles Sanders. It's a credit to the talent level of Swift. He was the second-round pick for a reason, led running backs in yards per touch last year for a reason, and the power, balance, speed, elusiveness, making guys miss, home run threat, physicality, agility, explosiveness. Like, DeAndre Swift has it all. And you saw that 28 carries, $175, average yards per carry, 6.3 against Minnesota with a touchdown. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers will be more difficult to run against. Vita Vea is going to clog up that middle, but can you work to the sides of Vita Vea? Can you get out to the perimeter? Swift has the ability to do that. And how about breaking the game open with a couple of screen passes, because Swift is certainly capable there. While Baker Mayfield has played good ball so far this season, when you pressure him, he starts to panic. He gets happy feet in the pocket. That's when he's prone to making a bad decision and turning the football over. He's shorter. So can you imagine Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis in his sight line, really making it difficult for Baker Mayfield to see the field? The Buccaneers have great weapons on the outside. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. But if Baker doesn't have time to throw, he can't see him because the pocket is clouded in front of him because of that Eagles pass rush. It's going to be a difficult time for the former number 1 overall pick. And then lastly, I don't think this is a massive key, but it's something that I want to see. Jalen Hurts has 2 throwing touchdowns. Both of them, as I said moments ago, to DeVonta Smith. That's great that Smitty's gotten going, and he looks really awesome. A.J. Brown looks great, but he's been held in check the first 2 games. If A.J. Brown breaks out in this game, the Eagles can win very, very easily, because that means that this Eagles offense is clicking. They're explosive throwing the ball downfield. He's great at picking up yards after the catch. I don't make a huge deal of him talking to Jalen Hurts. Nick Sirianni said on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being severe, 1 being nothing, he's going to rank it a 2. It's not a big deal. A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts are boys. They go back to their childhood. They even got competitive if Jalen Hurts missed a throw, as they would train together when they were growing up. So no big deal here at all. From what I've seen from A.J. Brown, he's an Eagle-less player. So too is DeVonta Smith, and that's why they complement each other really well. We round out with this. Predict the score. What do you think the score is going to be between the Birds and the Bucs down in Tampa? For me, I think this is going to be a sneaky, difficult game for the Eagles. That 6-point line as of right now, in my gut, it's a little bit too much for me. And I've been very close so far this season in predicting Eagles games. I said 24-20 week 1. They won 25-20. And then in week 2, I was off by a couple of points, but I took the Vikings plus 6.5 because I thought the game was going to be a 6-point ball game. So my prediction, 28-25. Eagles get the dub. They go to 3-0. And when we look back on it, it's a pretty good win against a pretty solid opponent.